Before I start, can I just explain, this is my first ever visit to the United States of America. And it was many years ago that I realized that the fact that you speak English and I speak English doesn't necessarily mean that we understand each other. Somebody has said that the American people and the British people are two peoples separated by a common language. So if I use an expression which offends you, it's an error. That's what I tell all the girls. If ever I use an expression which you don't understand, please do not hesitate to just shut up, because otherwise you're going to break my flow, and that embarrasses me. I'm not joking. I mean, I got in here yesterday, and I thought, I can speak English, and I've learned American words like hi. And I went into a shop and I bought something, and the lady said to me, "Have a good one." I felt like saying to her, "I haven't got one." But I suspected that if I did that, she might have been embarrassed and offended. But I'm really, really happy to be in the United States of America for the first time at the age of 64. And I've been a Christian for 3 years. Okay? So please bear that in mind. Anything that I say that is right is because I'm a Christian, and everything that I said is wrong is because I'm a young Christian. And that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Yeah, what I'm going to say to you is just my personal story. It is a personal experience. I have no proofs. I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. I don't have black and white here and black and white there. I have no proofs. It is my own lived experience. There are certain things which obviously cannot be transmitted. Like the little boy who was in his Sunday school class, and the Sunday school teacher said, "Now I want you all to do a drawing that represents something from the Easter story." And she sees a little boy who's scribbling away over his sheet of paper. And she says to him, what are you drawing? And he says, "I'm drawing God." And his teacher says to him, "Well, nobody knows what God looks like." "They will when I've finished." I don't have any drawings to show you. But before I start, there is a certain character called Richard Dawkins who is central to my story. Can I just have a show of hands? Anybody who doesn't know who Richard Dawkins is? And I'll explain to you. Okay. Richard Dawkins was initially a great biologist, of that there is no doubt. He wrote one of the most important books on the structure of the gene. This was many years ago, 1978, thereabouts, and the book was called The Selfish Gene. That title has been thrown back at him many times since, and he often points out that he had a choice between calling it the selfish gene or the cooperative gene, because both images would have worked equally well. Anyway, his initial role in life was as a scientist and a biologist. And he published book after book, and as he published an increasing number of books, it became evident to all those who were reading them that he had a thing against God. Just a little mention here, a little mention there. And in fact, it was one of his books called The Blind Watchmaker which represented a turning point in my life. Let me just give you a bit of my history. I was born and bred, in spite of appearances, I was bred, in North Wales in the United Kingdom, and I had what you call a nominal Christian education. That means, where I come from, that means that in order to have a bit of peace on Sunday, your parents sent you to Sunday school. And they weren't particularly happy to see you when you came back. And that was about it. And really? Wow, must have been a bit of a horizontal gene transfer then, across the Atlantic.
The lazy gene transferred all around the world from as soon as like that.
Eve has got a lot to answer for, I agree with you. And I was 15 when some Mormon missionaries came and knocked on my door. In fact, I was out that morning, and my mother said, "I'm too old to change, come back when Richard is home." And a short while later, I became a Mormon. I don't know if you've heard about the Mormon Church. I think there's some slightly American origins, but I know it's not your fault. It was very, very interesting, because to know the truth in Mormonism, you have to pray, and God will reveal the truth to you by a burning sensation in your bosom. Now then, the missionaries told me that I wasn't praying hard enough, and one night I think I had rather too much chili con carne. and I got the burning sensation. And so I probably became a Mormon for 10 years on account of eating too much chili con carne. Anyway, that lasted a certain time. I was even a Mormon missionary in France, you know. My faith in Mormonism started to diminish whilst I was a missionary, and then shortly afterwards my faith just disappeared altogether. Now then, I think my experience young is very similar to the experience of many people. I thought I was looking for God. It's not true. I was looking for social acceptance. That is how sects and cults thrive, by making people feel accepted. Whenever I went somewhere, if I felt accepted, I felt sure that the truth could be there. Just a word of warning, in case you're still looking, it isn't. And then I started looking into all this, you know, you can see how old I am. I mean, I was young at the time of the hippie phenomenon, you know, peace and love, the New Age woo-woo theories, everything's in the numbers, or, you know, spiritual revelation depends largely not upon who you follow, but what you smoke. And that's what a lot of people believed in those days. I went through a bit of that, but not much. And then one day, my sister, who was a professor of economics at Cambridge University, gave me a book called The Blind Watchmaker by Richard Dawkins. Now then, in order to understand the title, you need to know who the watchmaker is referring to. An 18th century theologian, William Paley, said, if you're walking along the beach and you see rocks just scattered anyhow, you don't say to yourself, somebody has deliberately put those rocks in that position. But if on one of those rocks you see a watch, you don't say those bits of metal have just come together accidentally. Because you can take a watch apart and you can determine that it has been designed. And so for him, the human body, life, was obviously designed, therefore obviously God exists. Now what Richard Dawkins did was, through the processes of evolution, he showed that that's just not true. These things which look as if they're designed are just the result of evolution, random mutation, natural selection. It all just happens. Isn't that obvious? Yes, we all said. And he even invented a word for those things which look as if they're designed. He said they're called designoid. You know, I look at my hand, and that's not been designed. It just sort of happened, you know. And I wish it would stop happening sometimes, actually. I look at my beautiful face. I think, you know, such beauty just couldn't have happened, but apparently it did. That's not nice, you don't believe me, do you? Okay, well, I'll just carry on with my story. Anyway, he explained with very, very good scientific justification that, you know, that life is not designed, it just happened, and as Perry has explained, random mutation plus natural selection equals evolution equals life. What started off as a blob in the primeval soup eventually became snakes and birds and Walmart and Perry and me. That primeval soup has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it? And, sorry?
Did you say Walmart?
No. No. You're imagining things there. Cultural differences. Okay, I didn't say Walmart. I love Walmart. What is it? I don't know. I don't even know what you eat it with. I'm sorry, it's just my nature. Because it's basically, I'm so excited about what I'm going to tell you. The thing is, what Perry told you is because, you know, he wanted to get you all hyped up to listen to me. It's not really true. I became an atheist. I didn't decide, aha, I got the proof that God doesn't exist, I have the proof. No. I thought, how obvious all this frustration in looking for God was bound to happen because I was looking for something which didn't exist. So my first atheist word was hallelujah. If you understand what I mean. That's all over. And so I became a very relaxed atheist. I thought, okay, put that all aside. You also need to know that at the time I was living in France. And France is a country where religion really is not an issue. Nobody has heard of Richard Dawkins in France because they couldn't care less. The evolution-creation debate doesn't exist. One pointer, for many years, for many centuries in history, France was known as the favourite daughter of the Catholic Church because it's an extremely Catholic country. Then we had the French Revolution. Then at the beginning of the 20th century, a very important law separating the church and the state. And France has become an extremely secular country where literally religion isn't an issue. I'm going to give you an official statistic, which is from 2007. When there was a survey about people's beliefs in France, 51% of French people claimed to be Catholic. Half of that 51% said they didn't believe in God. And for French people, it wasn't a contradiction. To be Catholic is a sign of, a condition. It's where you get baptized, you get married, something to get buried with. But don't bother me with God. Nobody talks about religion. Can you imagine that? If you go and say, if you go in a dinner party and you say, I believe in God, people will look at you and sort of, nobody will criticize you. We'll just sort of wait for the moment to pass so we can get on with talking about serious things, like the next elections or going on strike or some good quality wine that you bought. Religion was not an issue. So I can't say I was a raving atheist. I had nothing to rave about. Nobody will listen to me. And I really didn't mind. However, I will admit that I was very, very, very excited in discovering about evolution because it does seem to explain such a lot of things. Or so it seems. And so in 2006, when I discovered that Richard Dawkins had opened a website, the richarddawkins.net, in inverted commas, an oasis of clear thinking, I thought, at last, I'm going to be able to discuss these ideas. Just as a parenthesis, I started having health problems at this time, which meant that I was home a lot of the time, and I had plenty of time on my hands. It's quite funny, because when I said something which somebody did not agree with, they'd write back, get yourself a life. Haven't you got anything better to do with your life? I'd reply, well, no, actually. No, I'm just enjoying myself here. And this was my first ever experience of an internet forum. If you have never participated in an internet forum, you have not known the dark side of life. It was my son who explained to me the formula, which I can't repeat because we're in the church, and it ends with a very rude word. But the formula is anonymity, you're anonymous, plus the internet, plus you have an audience, equals somebody not very nice. And it's a rude word that finishes with head. And nowhere is this truer than in the debates concerning religion. I went onto this site, I signed up, and I thought to discover all these discussions and participate and say clever-sounding things. And I just came across page and a page of abuse, vile language, insults. I thought, now hang on a sec, we have got a problem here. Why is this? How can this be the case? And I tried to sort of add things to the discussion. Yeah, there were very, very clever people, very intelligent people, brilliant people who did post on these sites. I'm sad to say they were in a minority. And if you follow the history of what's happened to Richard Dawkins' site, if you know